Okay, welcome to another video on Luna. Now, yesterday I gave you a bit of a rundown on what I think is happening and the potential outcomes that we could be seeing. So I've gone ahead and applied AriasWave wave identification to what we're seeing here, right? So part of this also includes analyzing the drop. So before I get to the actual drop to sort of indicate why I'm thinking that this could potentially bounce, regardless of these so-called fundamentals, right? Because fundamentals can change at any moment with cryptos, especially when there's revival plans and all sorts of tactics that could potentially restore this coin. And there's a few things I'll mention once I show you the count of the actual drop that occurred over the last week. But first of all, what I can see here at the low, right, which is basically almost zero, is that it bounced in a way that it looks like there's a new trend beginning, right? Now, because these are fractal patterns, this trend could mean one of two things. It could be a correction that happens in the final move of the previous move if my count is incorrect. And what I mean by that, my count of the big drop. So I'll get to that in a second. So if this was to be just part of a correction right before this whole thing collapses to complete zero and doesn't recover ever again, I like to look at the waves in a way that sort of give me an indication of potential wave, well, the set of corrective patterns that occurs in a correction, which is what AriasWave is all about. So in saying that, right, this wave one here could be a wave A, right? It could be a wave A. So what that means is this is a zigzag pattern that looks to me like an expanded, just a type 1 expanded zigzag, which means the E waves ends around the area of the previous 5 wave move for wave A. Okay, so in saying that, I count 5 waves up here, and this particular move is, if you're an Elliotician, it's like a leading diagonal type move, right? Now, we know that leading diagonals can happen in the wave A of a zigzag. So therefore, we can't be 100% sure at this point in time if this is going to be a zigzag or the beginning of a move higher, because that same correction happens in a zigzag as well as like a wave 2 or a wave 4, right? And this is the kind of thing that AriasWave, that's what makes AriasWave different than Elliott Wave. Elliott Wave is very straightforward and way too basic to really understand how markets work. According to Elliott Wave, you get a 5 wave move up followed by a zigzag and then blah blah blah, all that stuff. But the fact is that waves are way more complex than that. And if you've ever tried to look at a market and use Elliott Wave, you're going to find that there's a whole bunch of waves that don't make sense. So that's the whole reason why I created it. Anyway, so moving on, what I can see here is 5 waves up, followed by an A, small A, and then we have a B wave that's unfolding now, right? Now, if this count is correct, then we can't go below the red line down here at 0.00013. This price action cannot go below that, right? Now, I really highly doubt that it will, but if it does for some strange reason, then I will, obviously update you. But the way I see this, we're in a B wave now. So a B wave now, uh, well, when I say wave E has to end near uh, the area of wave A, well, this is a wave B in brackets of a wave B still unfolding. So after we get that B wave, we'll have to see a CDE pattern happen as well. So it's like a fractal. This is a correction within a correction. Okay, so very similar to previous videos when I explain like the Dow Jones video. If you haven't seen that, check it out. You'll sort of, you might start to understand a little bit about how I look at the waves. So in terms of this B wave zigzag, this one started back here on the 14th of May around, well, on this chart it's 1440, so like 2:40 in the afternoon. Well, at least where I live, depending on what my time zone is. But anyway, not the point. So we're probably going to see a move up a bit higher now that will at least go back up to 0.0007. And then we might get a bit of a pullback and then another move. Don't worry about it. We're going to track it. The main thing right now to understand is we can't go below this red line. We need to make another high, right? Now, this is obviously right at the lows. So what can happen after this is that if this is just a correction, like a wave 4 correction for the end of this whole, the end of lunar, then what would essentially happen is that we'd see the C, the D, the E, and then we get that last move up to complete a wave A, right? And that should probably take us to the previous fourth wave. But at this point in time, unless this is a completely expanded type 2 zigzag, I don't even think it's going to make the previous wave 4, because typically if a market corrects, it should typically correct to the previous wave 4. Now that can happen, but that means that then would have to come back down again, and this correction would definitely be ongoing, right? So at this point in time, I don't really think that this is going to end over the next few days. But at the same time, in saying all that, right, I also want to point out the actual 5 wave move that happened since the highs and how we can try and figure out if that's actually the case. Okay, so going back to the highs, which started back in, I would say, around the 5th of April 2022, I can see a 5 wave move down here followed by a correction. Okay, so we have a basically like a 3-3-5-3-5 pattern that marks the end of wave 2. Okay, I put the wave 2 way too high here. And then that's where wave 1 of wave 3 starts. So we had a 1 and then a bit of an expanded correction to the downside. All right, with the 3-3-5, and the 3 for the D went all the way down here, and it was actually a pretty big wave D. Basically came all the way down here. So what I mean by that is it's like an A, B, C, and that's for D, and then you had an E wave, right? Now E wave's a 5 wave move. So if you look there, you can see a 5 wave move, and that's the end of wave 2. And that's when we begin wave 3. So wave 3, you had 1, 2, and then you had your 3 all the way down here, right? And then you had a 4, which was like a 3, 3, 5, 3, sorry, 3, 3, 5, 3, 5. So this area here is where the correction ended for wave 4, and then you had your final move down for the end of wave 3. Okay, wave 5 of wave 3. And then you had a sharp wave 4, and then this is what I believe is the final move, wave 5. So from, if I want to zoom out for a second, right, I believe that that was a complete 5 wave correction. Like well, it's a wave E. Now if you don't really understand what that means in terms of wave E, then take a look at my Dow Jones idea, because across the board, I expect a 5-wave decline across the board. Now, the thing that I find strange is that why did this market produce this pattern way ahead of every other market? It's almost like this one, like I said yesterday, is leading the way in terms of the crash. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to see continued declines in other cryptos until we get that 5-wave move, but this one just happened straight away. So opportunity potentially could be staring us right in the face. So therefore, to me, it's interesting. I like the waves, so I'm going to pay attention to this. Okay, now regardless of the UST scenario, that's a problem that can be fixed. Whether they fix it or not, I don't know. All I do is follow the waves. Okay, now when you're talking about fundamentals when it comes to Terra Luna, wow, good luck with that. We haven't even heard many updates from the creators. Okay, so for me, it's all about the waves and the moves, the kinds of moves that I'm expecting to happen across the entire economy, except for the US dollar. The US dollar would be the only thing that continues to rise. Once that rise in the US dollar ends, then we're probably going to see a massive bull run across all markets, the Dow Jones, cryptos, everything. Okay. So to me, deciphering this pattern here, the one thing that must be acknowledged is wave two was long and drawn out. So wave four is short and sharp. Okay, that's alternation. Okay, AriasWave is not Elliott wave, but there are definitely some parts of Elliott wave that do actually make sense. Oops, I just skipped to a different chart. Just excuse me for a sec. Right. So the rule of alternation definitely applies. It's just the corrective portions of a market that, and basically the understanding of how all these markets are actually forming a very similar pattern is the one that makes AriasWave stand out and unique. And I'll just remind you once again, I am in the process of writing a book, so stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out hopefully over the coming months, if not by the end of the year. So, so at the lows, I can't really say to you that that's a wave four that already happened because this move here, well, we've already counted a complete 5-wave move, including every subdivision of wave three. So therefore, I can't really say to you that this is part of wave four. It could be, but I highly doubt it. Okay, especially because wave A was too short. Getting that wave C to go all the way up here would just, it is possible, but that would mean that you'd have to see a very expanded zigzag occur here. So wave B could expand, little c, big D, small e, and then the rest of the way up, which means at the very minimum, a target should be around 0.049, right? If you want to, be careful and take it easy with, your risk, that sort of thing. And mind you, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not going to try and I'm not trying to say you should do any of this. This is purely analysis based on AriasWave. Okay, so that being said, it's early days still. Very cheap prices. Throw in a couple of bucks wouldn't hurt. It's up to you. Me, myself, a small amount just to see what happens, right? Because nobody can really know what's going to happen in the future with this crypto, right? So a couple of more things I want to add to this, right? Let's just go to the weekly chart for a moment, okay? Now, out of all the cryptos, this particular market has seemed to, you know, track a little bit differently than most cryptos, right? it only started falling in April. Whereas if you look at other cryptos, they've been kind of declining for a lot longer than that, right? Not a hell of a lot longer, but definitely April compared to other cryptos, this crypto fell all of a sudden. And, for whatever reason, for whatever technical reasons or fundamental reasons, this crash happened all of a sudden. And it still fits in line with my general overview of what I expect to happen across the board in all cryptos. In Bitcoin, I expect to see something like this happen. I don't know how low it will go, but it's something like this, like a 5-wave move to the downside. Now, it's easier to say that when you're looking at a weekly chart, but obviously if you go to a 4-hour chart, it looks a bit different, right? You go to a 1-hour chart, it looks a bit different, right? And that's just a matter of perspective, because if Bitcoin crashes a lot to the downside, even past 20,000, right? If you go to a higher time frame, it's almost going to look like a straight line, right? But if you zoom in, you're going to see that there are those subdivisions that give you the clues. So to me, it's just a matter of perspective. Now, the fact that this one did it early, that's the only thing that I find bizarre and interesting and super intriguing. And there's a lot of people who have eyes on this right now. So the B wave here indicates that whatever we're going to see in the future will be a very impulsive move to the upside. Okay, it's going to be something that is going to happen across the board, right? Yes, I do expect a 90%, roughly 90% uh, crash in the Dow Jones and the Nasdaq, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to go twice as high as what it ever did, right? It doesn't mean that. And I believe that has a lot to do with interest rates, but I'm not going to get into that now. You can go watch those previous videos if you have any questions about that. Right now, I keep my members informed because I have a private Facebook group. So basically, doing the course on my website gives you that extra access to that group. People who are into AriasWave or still learning it can definitely, you know, share ideas and communicate their thoughts, and also offer, their opinion that might help you in some way or not. But looking at this B wave here, we've had an A, B, C, D, E correction, right? Now, the D and E can be small. That's fine, right? We've seen, if you look at the Euro chart that I've been posting, you had a massive wave A, slightly smaller wave B, very small wave C, small wave D, and even smaller wave E. So these kinds of patterns, they happen, right? They converge. A lot of people like to look at it like, oh, it's a triangle. Sure, you could make the argument that it's like a triangle or whatever, right? You need to see a breakout or something to confirm. Well, using the waves, you don't really need to go into those little details and draw your little triangles and stuff, right? You can just use the waves, because the waves produce certain patterns that always repeat at every degree, and I call them wave components. Wave A is a wave component. B, C, D, and E are wave components, and they make up part of a larger wave component, and the whole thing just keeps growing fractally, like Russian dolls, right? This is the beauty of what I do, and it's far more advanced than any kind of Elliott wave analysis. Okay, so in this case, it looks like potentially wave E did complete for this B wave that we're looking for another move higher, but you can see that it's started to get choppy. Now, the last part of a zigzag does get choppy because it just basically shows you that the end of a zigzag is choppier than the beginning. So right now, do we go below this dotted line, Well, I guess we'll find out. But stay tuned because I have more